Okay, the other day we looked at adding and subtracting monomials. Today we're going to look at multiplying monomials. So when you're multiplying monomials, we're using the product rule. And so what the product rule says is that if you have a variable to a certain power times that same variable to a power, then it's going to be equal to that variable to the power of a plus b. So what that looks like is, for example, on the first one, I have x squared times x to the third. And so if I think of what x squared really is, it's really just x times x. And so if I have x times x, that would give me x squared. But then I'm multiplying that by x cubed, so that's times x times x times x. And so it's really taking x and multiplying it together all those times. And what I can do if I write it out like this is just say, well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I know that would be x to the fifth. And if you notice, all that I'm really doing is, since I'm multiplying it together, I will add the exponents. So whenever I move up to the exponents, it's like I take, instead of multiplying, I move down one on order of operations and add instead of multiply. So I would add 3 plus 2. So that means when I'm doing a to the ninth times a, if I were to write that out, that would be 9 a's and then one more. So you could really think of that as a to the first power. And so I just do 9 plus 1. So that would give me a to the 10th power. Now you have some down here on your examples that talks about first when we're going to do the coefficients. Any coefficients, I'm just going to multiply together. So let's look down at number 24 as a good example. So I've got negative 7, p to the ninth, q to the third, and r, we'll say r to the first power, times negative 4, p to the second, q to the sixth, r to the fourth. Now, these aren't the same, but we're not adding, we're multiplying. And these are all really multiplied together anyways, so negative 7 times p to the ninth times q to the third times r. So one of my properties of multiplication, since all this is being multiplied, I can go multiply in whatever order I want to. So it says the first thing we need to do is multiply the coefficients. So if I do negative 4 times negative 7, negative times a negative gives me a positive, and that'd be a positive 28. Then I'm going to take and do my variables, just the variables with the same variable. I add together those exponents. So p to the ninth times p to the second, 9 plus 2, give me p to the 11th. And then q to the third times q to the sixth. Remember, this is the same as me doing q to the third would be q times q times q. And to the sixth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all multiplied together. And so I could just say, count those up, and I add them together, I get q to the ninth. And I have r to the first and r to the fourth, so add those together and you get r to the fifth. So as you look through at these, doesn't get much more complicated than that. You've got ones that are multiplying together, but no matter how they're split up, even if you have multiple things added together, multiply the coefficients together, then add the exponents for the x's, then for the y's. That goes the same throughout. Remember down here when you're multiplying fractions or fractions and whole numbers, that you'll just multiply the whole number times the top. So This would be 12 times 2 divided by 3. This would be negative 6 times 1 divided by 2. Okay, then down here you'll have some mixed practice to work on. So on that mixed practice, we're going to go through the same steps, but we're going to do our multiplying first. So for number 35, for instance, first I'll multiply my coefficients. 2 times 4, give me 8. Then I'm sticking to this part over here that's getting multiplied together. So not this other side yet. X to the 5th, x to the 1st, be x to the 6th when I add those together. Then y squared and y to the 3rd gives me y to the 5th. Then I'll put my addition sign, and the only coefficient it looks like I have is 3. So then I'll do x to the 4th plus x squared gives me x to the 6th. And then the y's add together to give me y to the 5th. So I'll notice I have now where I can add together. And when I'm adding or subtracting, remember we're checking all of the coefficient or all the variables and exponents to make sure they're the same. So everything on the back is the same, 6 x's and 5 y's. And so one of them's an 8, one of them's a 3. They just add together. 8 plus 3 gives me 11. So 11 x to the 6th, y to the 5th. Okay, that goes the same throughout. You've got ones that get a little more complicated as you go on, but continue working through this. Now remember that multiplying rule where you're just adding those exponents.